So today we have Cristian Angyal. I will talk a little bit, I will present him after a couple of announcements. For now, just a couple of notes for those of you who might not be used to Teams. You have the chat, the speech balloon there at the top or at the bottom, depending on the device and the version that you are using. You can use that to type in your questions, make your comments during the session. And there's also the video and the microphone that you can turn on if you want to during the session to help with internet connection and all that. And anyone having problems with internet, we can leave and join the team again, the meeting again after. Even myself, if that happens with me, don't worry. Teams will continue to record, or at least it should. Okay. A shout out to Reactor Toronto, Microsoft Reactor Toronto. This is a program by Microsoft. They have this program in different cities around the world, including Toronto, and they dedicate to help the people in the community who are passionate about technology to share knowledge and help them meet with other people, other enthusiasts, to come together and organize different sessions. Make sure to, if you are interested, not only in Excel, but any technology, especially those by Microsoft, check their meetup group, Microsoft Reactor Toronto, and they have plenty of sessions happening all the time there. The next session for our meetup group will happen in December the 8th. What Excel users should know about Python. We will have George Mount presenting about that topic. Very excited about that. So remember to register when I post the session. It's not posted yet. Also, there will be an Excel event in February 2022. It will be the second edition of the Global Excel Summit. I presented that on the first edition. I am very glad to be presenting again, second time, the next session, the next edition in February. They are now selling the tickets at a discount early bird price. And if you want to buy your ticket and get 10% discount on top of the early bird price, use this code Célia10 and you will get a 10% discount both for the event itself and then the master classes that are sold separately. And these are the sessions that are happening across on other meetup groups. Feel free to check it. Faraz Shaikh always publishes this list on his LinkedIn. So if you follow him, you will see this list there every month, and you can discover other meetup groups in different parts of the world. Plenty of topics, speakers, great opportunities to learn. And congratulations to Faraz, who just became a Microsoft MVP. Congratulations, Faraz. I know you are there. So thank you, Faraz, for everything that you have been doing for this community, including preparing this calendar every month, putting together all this information, and also running your own meetup group. So well done.
Thank you, Célia. Thank you. It was a teamwork.
Welcome to the team, and we are very glad to have you with us. And for us, it has been with us since the beginning of the meetup group, always participating, although the time zone is not so so convenient for him. Catherine Mondragon, she is with us today. Catherine is located in Edmonton, and she will do a quick presentation about Facebook group dedicated to Excel consultants. So we thought that this could be interesting for some of you. Working as a consultant brings specific challenges and common challenges to all the consultants. I'll let Catherine talk about that. Will is also with Catherine to help her with some slides. So let's do that. Welcome and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having us here, Célia, and to your group. I hope, can everybody hear me, Célia? Can you give me a nod to make sure you can hear me?
I can hear you very well.
Okay, great. Yes, I'm Catherine. Mondragon. Oh, sorry, Célia.
Go ahead, go ahead. I'm just wondering if, so you said that Will is going to present the slides. So Will, if you want to put them up, there you go. And then we can hear you, Catherine. So it's working well.
Okay, great. Yeah, so I'm Catherine, and I am actually the admin for the Facebook group. And Will is a marketing project manager. And we started this Facebook group through a company called Pleasant Solutions, which is a software-based company. And we're here today to tell you about our group and hopefully try and recruit some new members. So our group it has kind of a fun name. It's called Excel Consultants equals Clients times 10 plus fun. But it's a little bit of a complicated name there to click on. So Célia will share the link with you afterwards so that you can check it out, hopefully. So the reason why we started this group is because we noticed, oh wait, I want to give you guys a moment to check out the joke. So the joke is based on a Far Side cartoon. And it says a pivot table power, oh gosh, I can't even see it. A pivot table, can everybody see it? Hang on, I just have to.
Pivot table power user walks into a bar. And then it says, put it all on the same tab, will you?
Thank you. Thank you so much. Anyway, so we actually commissioned somebody who works with us to create a whole bunch of cartoons for our group, which have gotten some really great reactions. Anyways, so we noticed in the Excel space that most of the groups were focused on teaching and learning Excel. But we felt like there was a need for Excel consultants that we spoke with to gain support in the business and marketing and finding new client space. And because our company has such a great marketing team, we wanted to put together a community on Facebook to help Excel consultants with some of those needs that we had discovered through our conversations with different people working in Excel. And so we figured out that space doesn't really exist, and we wanted to create a unique Facebook group that would give people tips on marketing, tips on sales, how to grow your business and get more clients. So we like to think of it as a complement to other groups, not a competition to other groups, if that makes any sense. And we discovered Celia's group and approached her and asked if maybe we could, pitch our group, Facebook group, to her audience to see if there was anybody who was interested in joining us. So our purpose is that we are looking for independent Excel consultants to join our group. So people who already have a knowledge of Excel, who already have their own consulting business, and are looking for more tips and more information to help them market their Excel content to clients and to help them find more clients. The mandate of our group is to support Excel consultants to expand their entrepreneurial skills. And we are hoping that we can actually find out more information from Excel consultants who join our group on what kind of content would be useful and helpful in helping people to find the right kind of clients and to be able to attract them to their Excel consulting business. So it's really important to us, and we feel very privileged that we have this opportunity to be able to talk to people who are actually working in this space. And we're hoping that we can get some feedback on providing better marketing and sales tips to Excel consultants. So Célia will be forwarding our contact information. And you can email us or click on the group and message us in the group. And yeah, we're really excited to be here. We're really looking forward to the presentation today. And hopefully a few of you might be interested in joining us. So Cristian, didn't want to take up too much time and space. And hopefully, you know, there's enough. We haven't taken up too much time here, but Célia will forward our contacts so you can ask us questions.
Sure. I just posted the link for the Facebook group, and I'm going to post now the email address. And yeah, so people can join. I think consulting is challenging regardless of the business area. And I think that consulting in Excel has specific challenges. And it's interesting that people can find a group where to discuss those challenges and find some help, or find discuss those things and maybe brainstorm and come up with new ideas. Thank you, Catherine. Great to have you here. I hope you can stay with us if you can. If not, thank you anyways, and good luck for the group. I hope you get some new members today, and that people can help each other there.
Oh yeah, thank you so much, and thank you for giving us the time. We're excited for the presentation.
My pleasure. Thank you. Okay, so just going on, continuing, we have Cristian Angyal today with us. I'm going to read Cristian's bio, or I mean the presentation that I had for him on Meetup. So that's the official presentation about Cristian, and then I'll do the more personal one. So Cristian is a project management professional turned into a data guy, he says, working as a link between the two worlds, IT and business. Having worked for the last 15 years plus with data in different roles in several industries, he was fascinated when he discovered Power Query and Power Pivot back in 2014 and Power BI in 2015. Lucky you. In 2014-15, I was just discovering VLOOKUP, so I think you are a little bit ahead of me. Ever since he learned about the Power Tools, he realized that these tools, with the ability to learn them once and use them in both places, Excel and Power BI, could make a huge difference in the way data is managed inside the organizations. He's holding several Microsoft certifications, MCSE, data management and analytics, MCSA BI reporting, Moz Master, Excel expert, certified trainer, Power BI certified data analyst, and so on and so on. And he loves getting insights from data and then using these insights involving real business problems. Cristian also started a Meetup group, a user group for modern Power BI, for Power BI and modern Excel in Romania. Successful group, has amazing speakers. I recommend you that you check that out too. And here we are today. Cristian, thank you so much for being with us today. You have been one of the members from this group since we started at least the online sessions right there when the pandemic started and we had to move to online. You've been with us since then, and I thank you for all your engagement with our group and other groups, then your commitment to start your own group and all the things that you share with the community. And thank you too for joining us today. I know you were a little bit nervous about presenting, but this is not the first time, and I'm sure it won't be the last. And I am very excited about the topic that you are bringing today. So enough talking, and I'm passing the microphone and the screen to you. Please go ahead and let us know what you've got.
Okay. Thank you for having me. First of all, Célia, because
my
it's
pleasure. Thank you for coming. It's late for you, so.
Yeah, but it's not a problem. You know, I'm a night owl, and I'm joining the groups, and Ken also knows very well that I can join at any hour.
Late hours.
Yeah. Thank you everyone for joining, and I'm really glad that I have the possibility to give a little bit back to the community, because I've learned so much from the community. I hope my session will be useful for all of you, regardless of the level where you are in the Power Query journey. And I saw that we have some really knowledgeable people, including my mentor here, Ken Puls. As Célia said, I'm a project manager with an electrical engineering as a background. I've worked in different areas in engineering, quality, project management, business project management, and now I'm in IT, in data management and analytics. As I've been I'm an efficient guy always. I always wanted to do my job easier and faster, so I don't have to spend too much time doing repetitive and boring tasks. And I realized from the start that there are, regardless of the position, we are sitting on mountains of data. It's only a matter of understanding the data and getting insights and actually using those insights in order to ease up our work and life in general. I've always preferred to learn something new in order to ease up my work. Told you I was lazy. And I wanted to check my knowledge with different Microsoft exams. And of course, as I'm coming from a business world and an Excel world, my first certification was Excel expert. But I'm also tinkering Power Platform, T-SQL, and I'm trying to develop from now on. As Célia said, I'm the organizer of Power BI Romania Power BI Modern Excel user group, and actually I have to thank Célia for giving some mentoring at the beginning and some help, and also I'd like to thank Ken, who accepted to be our first presenter there. So 2 more months and we have 1 year already. I'm really glad, and you said he started his own group. No, it's not my group. It's our group. It's a community group. I'm only the guy that facilitates everything. Enough about me. Let's see a little bit about you guys. Please scan this QR code or join the Slido with this number. Let me see, I think I can make it bigger and see what's the actual level of knowledge of Power Query inside the group here. I'm curious to see.
So you can just either scan the code or type in that address, right? Slido.com, and then enter that
the number.
That code. Yeah, that's that number. How familiar are you with Power Query?
I was expecting some Power Query ninjas here.
You needed something between ninja and regular for people like me, Cristian.
Yeah, I don't want to put
use
ninja.
It regularly. You should. You should, Célia. You should.
No. So there you go.
So most of the people use it regularly and are ninjas. So this will not. Some of the content that I will share will be more or less useless to you, but as I didn't know how diverse is the group, I have a little bit for everybody's, and I hope that everybody can find something that it's at least a little bit useful. So let's move on. As most of us know what Power Query is, we all know that it's an ETL tool, data transformation and data preparation engine. ETL comes from extract, transform, and load. It connects to hundreds of data sources, allows hundreds of transformation and shaping of the data, and helps loading the data where instructed, whether it's tables or data models or whatever, depending on where you are using it. And I told you, I'm lazy. I loved it because I can just click refresh and do everything again without actually doing it. This is the reason why I fell in love with Power Query. And as Wayne Hopkins says, Power Query is the world's greatest data washing machine. So I love this, and it's really, really true. So most of Power Query host applications used are Excel and Power BI, and the errors are treated in the exact same way in both of them. But Power Query can be found in several places. For Excel 2010 and 2013, there are some add-ins that can be downloaded from Microsoft and can be installed. And for Excel 2016 onwards, including the 365, Power Query is already embedded. We can also find Power Query in Power BI, in Dataflows from Power BI, and in other Microsoft applications. And this is the list that it will probably grow in the next years. I haven't worked with all the Power Query applications that are listed here, but I'm pretty sure as the engine is the same behind it, the errors are treated more or less in the same manner. So how Power Query works, I think all of us here know that in Power Query, each expression must produce something. Ideally, this is the expected value normally. And a value can be anything from a simple scalar, a text, a date, a number, to records, lists, tables, functions, or binaries. However, there's an alternative. An expression can raise an error, which is a special way of indicating that the expression could not produce a value. And we'll be going through this second type of result coming from Power Query. A Power Query error has three components. Two of them are mandatory and one is optional. It's the error reason, which is the first section before the column here. So let me see if I can have not the pen, but the highlighter. This one is the reason. In the example here, the reason is the actual reason for error. So nothing much. It was a handmade error. The error message itself, which is after the column and before the details, and the error detail. The section is directly after details is this one. So every Power Query error has those three components, with two of them mandatory. How do I get rid of the, I hope not, the highlighter? It's still on for me and I don't know how to get it off. Yeah, maybe with a pointer. Doesn't matter. The same error shown here is actually can be shown as a record in the second picture, and we'll see it in the demos how this one is working. And there are two error types in Power Query. One of them is the step level errors, which are preventing the queries from loading. And there are some value errors or cell level errors, which does not prevent the query from loading, and Power Query tend to ignore cell level errors, and whenever the data is loaded, whether in a table in Excel or in the data model, the errors are replaced with blank, and we only see the error in the query pane. And there are also two types of users and developers: those who wait for the errors to happen, and I'm sure none of us in the meeting are those guys, and usually these are the people or the users which are at the beginning of their Power Query journey, or they really don't care, and those who are planning for the errors. And I'm sure that all of you that are here in this meeting are part of this second group, right? The step level errors. Let's have some small discussion on these ones. These are the ones, as I told you, these are the errors that won't let you go further. They are preventing the queries from loading, or they wouldn't let you to refresh the data in the table or the data model. And these are the ones that we really have to take care in order to continue. And most common step level error types are the data source error, where the query cannot find the source. The formula firewall errors, they are not very often, but really annoying. And this is happening usually when combining data sources and the privacy levels come into play. In most cases are solvable either by ignoring the privacy, if you really know your data and you know there is no risk, and usually in Excel, even if we don't know the exact data, we tend to press the ignore privacy levels, or with staging layers, what I call the 3 layers Puls methodology. It's something that I've learned from Ken, and I'm really glad that he's here to see that I'm actually using it. I will provide a link on the last slide with the resources. And speaking of teachers and masters on Power Query, I will also provide a link on the resource slide from a talk that Chris Webb had with a deep dive session on privacy settings in Power Query. Since we are here on the formula firewall errors, I thought that this would be helpful as an additional reference to it. Also, step level errors are the errors that are happening in different query steps, and usually most of the time these are the ones that we encounter, and the errors that happen in precedent queries. And we'll see some of them, but I'm sure that all of us saw them already. This helps me moving faster with the demos and try to stay within 1 hour with the presentation. Well, the second type of errors are the value errors or the cell level errors. These most common cell level errors are the data type conversion. In the real world, especially in working with files that are coming with data coming from files like Excel, CSVs, text files, and so on. And these are not happening very often with data coming from databases, data sources like SQL, Oracle, or so on, where data types are really well set and established. We'll build an audit table, and I'll show you some additional examples that I've learned through the years and from hand banging during the time, and we'll move further with the demo. Let's see whether I can open this one. I think I should switch my screen. One moment. This
Go
one.
ahead. Okay, it's coming up. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
is
good.
it visible?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it's easier. This is the screen in front of me.
If you are able to zoom in just a little bit, maybe for people who are watching from a small device, it would be helpful. Thank you.
So here I have a very small data model built, and we can see it not here, but in the data model with two tables, sales and product table. They are really small, and I wanted to have a data model because there is a special type of error that it's not directly related, but I wanted to show it to you. So it's a fact table and a dimension table, really simple, nothing complicated. The data, I just right click and get data from table range, put it in Power Query, or go to data from table range with both tables. Let's open the Power Query editor, trying to make it bigger. And here I wanted to demo some step level errors that are preventing the data to load. And one of them is, for example, just let's say we are changing the column name here. Instead of channel, point of sale or sales point. If we are changing it here, nothing happens, everything is good. But if we would have done this in as a step before the change type step, this is a step level error. And this is happening because on the change step level, on the change type step, all the column names are hard coded here. And this is one of the things that I've learned from Ken and others, that we should set the data types as far as possible or as close as possible to the end of the query just before loading the data in the data model or in the table. But having it as a problem here, as a error in this query, if we go to view and the query dependency view, we see that we have another query which is depending on transactions, the channels, which is also having an error now. And this is one of the errors that I was talking about when you have errors. So in this one, we have an error in a precedent query. So even if we go on the first step of the query, we still have an error because this one is coming from the transaction query here. So it's for most of you that you know what step level errors are. This is not something really wow, so we can move further. I also have a separate query here where I just define a query with a single step defining the error, and these are the actual pictures that you saw in the presentation.
Can you please zoom in a little bit?
Yes, this one it's a bit
Control.
difficult.
Yeah.
This is better.
Yes, much better. Thank you.
Yeah, as I told you, an error, it's actually a record with 3 fields: reason, which is mandatory, message, which is also mandatory, and detail, which is optional. I'll show you later how we can work with them or leverage them in a different demo. But this one, I wanted just to show you how we can see actually the record there. And we use a special word in Power Query, a try. If we have the try, this is the first step. See, the entire error, it's actually a record, which is holding 2 fields: HasError, which is true here because we erased the error itself, and the error itself with so inside this record, inside the error record, we have 2 fields: HasError and another record embedded. And this other record, it's actually the reason, message, and detail. We'll see later, if I don't forget during the demo, that even the values that are extracting and they are not errors are having the exact same 2 fields here, where HasError is false, always false, and this is why we don't see them. But we'll move further. Does that make sense so far? Is it
very interesting? I've learned a couple of things already.
Well, I'm glad. Really glad. So let's move to the next one. Step level errors. I have another demo, which I've learned actually from Ken in a session on Definity, I think, right, Ken? This is a simple table, and we have a query, this one, that transform actually gets the data from here and put it as a table, load it as a table. Normally, if we are using this kind of, let me make it bigger. This is something that it seemed very interesting for me, and I wanted to show it, and maybe other could benefit out of it. If in this query, in this table, we modify one of the columns, what do you think it will happen when we refresh? Let's refresh the query, and we get an error. It's a step level error with an expression error. Not sure if it's visible. The column quantity of the table was not found. How can we solve for this? If we put it back here, if we go back to the query and make it bigger, what do you think we should do here?
You can adjust the column name there, for example.
Yes, but we don't want to do this. We want to plan for the errors.
Okay.
So we are adding an additional step by clicking the FX button here. And here we just go with a try, exactly like I showed you before, try otherwise. Otherwise, the syntax try otherwise. If we go only with the try, let's go like this first. We get the exact details that I showed you earlier, the record with the HasError true and the actual error here. But we want to provide something for the end user here. So for this, we have a simple query where I just typed something is wrong. So this is a very simple query in Excel with an output of a text output. So let's try this one. Instead of just having try, let me make it bigger. Let's put here otherwise. Simple error. This time when we get the error, so try otherwise is doing the following. Try will actually try to evaluate this step. If it returns a value which is valid, it will just put that value. But if this one returns an error, this entire expression will return whatever it's written after the otherwise keyword. So let's go back to the query and see this time if we modify the quantity in the column name back and refresh the query, everything is normal. We have no error. But what if this data or this table would be part of a VLOOKUP or a data model where the item is related to other items from a dimension table? Returning that error, this error with something is wrong, it's not helpful anymore. So this is helpful for something that it's done locally and you are returning something and then not preventing the query to load. But if the result here would have been in a VLOOKUP or in a data model, part of a structure that it's already something is depending on, then we would have a problem. So this is why we've defined another query, which is actually really simple. It's a table.from records. We are defining our own table with the exact names that are in the output, or they should be in the output query, and putting the values with the same types that would have been in the output query. So we are defining a table, actually a record with three values: item, date, and quantity, with the exact names that are supposed to output, and then change the type. And this is simple. And instead here in the query, instead of using the simple error, we could just modify with the sales error. Nothing changed because now the data is correct, but let's modify it. So let's refresh it. Nothing changed. Everything is right. Let's modify another one, dates, for example, and try to refresh. This time, even if we had a step level error that normally is preventing us to load the query, we are still returning a table with a single row, with the same data types, with the same column names, not breaking any other formula that it's depending on it. And this is something I told you that I've learned from Ken, and I'm actually using it almost on daily basis because I'm having a lot of files that are filled up by different Excel users that don't realize that modifying a column name could potentially hurt the entire system.
Hey, Cristian.
Yeah.
It's Belinda. There's someone with their hand up. Ken, you want to unmute and ask your question?
Sure, no problem.
Ken with no last name. You can.
Not Ken Puls.
Not Ken Puls. Maybe it's up by accident. Okay, keep going.
Yeah, thanks for noticing it. I don't see the.
Oh, he said he's not
The
able
window.
to. Type your question in the chat. We'll read it right now.
Yeah.
He can't unmute himself.
I love Ken's comment. Just admit that I love that technique. Yeah, thanks for teaching us, Ken. So,
So hopefully he'll type that in. Ooh. Oh, he said, please proceed. He's having laptop issues. Okay.
Okay. So, I'm glad that until now, at least for Célia, something was new. But I hope that everyone else is seeing some benefits out of it. So let's move with another demo quickly, because I'm moving pretty okay until now. So we are switching now to the dealing with errors and dealing with cell level errors. We have a small file with sales, monthly sales on books in a library. We have a title of the book, the author, the date when it was sold, and the price. And for each month, there is a table. Someone, me as the guy who's doing it, is setting up a table in an actual table format with correct names. I'm trying to keep everything clean. But now, because I'm lazy and I want to have everything and do a pivot table, I want to consolidate everything. I will do it pretty simple. If I go to data, open the query editor, launch the query editor, and just build a new query. Go from here, make it bigger with the formula Excel current workbook. And the IntelliSense is still not fixed, and probably it will not be fixed soon, right, Ken? So Excel.current workbook is getting me all the tables and all the defined names in the current Excel book. I won't go in all the details now because I have it already done here. So I'm just doing the Excel current workbook. I'm expanding the content, replacing this underscore here. So I'm trying to format this column as a date, and I'm replacing the underscore in a step. Just right click, replace values, but you already know about it. Change the type to a date. From this column, I go to transform date, month, and just calculate the end of month. In this step, rename the column, and let's load the table, the consolidated table. Close and load. Because I already loaded it before as a connection only, this is not loading directly, so I have to right click, load to table in a new worksheet. And when I'm loading it, I see an error. Well, what is this error? It's pretty strange. Maybe I did something wrong. So let's do a refresh here. Actually, there are 69 errors. Something is really fishy. Refresh again. And the number is growing. So let's click on the errors and see what's happening. If I'm clicking on the error, Power Query is building another query for me. This one, errors in consolidate. And this one, I found it different than the one in Power BI. In Power BI, you would have the name of the query and the date and the time exactly here in the name, and each of the error queries that are built in Power BI, it's having the its own group, its own folder. In Excel is different, and I like it better like this. So if we go on the source tab, we already see that we have some errors, so this is not very helpful. So just delete this one and see what's the problem here. I'm at the last step of the query and I have some errors. What is it? So let's read the error. We click the white space on the right of the error and check the actual error. It's a data format error, so probably here on the change type it happened. We couldn't parse the input provided as date, and the detail was consolidate. So let's see here what's the problem. Probably this is where everything happened, but I would go at the beginning. Here I don't see anything. So this is something that usually the newcomers to Power Query are having issues with. Power Query is just caching a preview of the data, and every time you want to see what's inside and make sure that you are working on the latest preview, because it will still be a preview, you have to refresh the preview. If I'm refreshing the preview, I already see something different. The consolidate, the actual table that was loaded in Excel, this one, it's appearing here also. And now it's clear that when I'm expanding that name, it's the same everywhere, and whatever I'm doing afterwards will provide me an error. So how do we fix this? It's pretty easy, actually. We leverage the remove error button. So if there are two options, whether we right click on the column name, because we really don't need those data, and we click remove errors, or we go here on remove errors and just remove the errors. This time, even if I'm going to the last step, I won't see an error, because all the errors that came and that would possibly come afterwards would be removed at this remove errors. So it's not always bad to have errors. We can also use them at our advantage, and this time here we are leveraging it, and there is no problem. So if we check the refresh table, now it has 68 rows as initially. If we refresh it, there is no problem. But if we have another unhide, if next month we get the sales, the library sales for April, we're just doing the same thing, transforming everything in a table, modify the name, April 2021, go to consolidation, right click, refresh, and everything is here. Now we also have April inside. And this time we won't get the errors anymore. This is the next one. And if there is no question on it, I should go to the the next one with leveraging errors from a file, from an external files. Is anyone with me? Any question on this one?
No, there was a question by Henry asking if there is also a way to deal with more logical / business level errors instead of technical errors. But Ken and Belinda already helped him, I believe. So Henry, if you think you still need to ask more about that, let us know there in the chat. Otherwise, I don't think there were any other questions.
Okay, so let's move further with leveraging errors. This is a file that I brought. This one is a file which is connecting to a CSV file. So my Excel file is actually connecting to a CSV file, this one. And this is a technique that I've learned also from Ken, from I think it was from the MS for Data Monkey, the first book. I think this is where I saw it for the first time. So if we check the settings here, see this file is connected to this CSV file. Normally, when we get these kind of files, we have to do some steps to clean it up, and therefore we remove the top 5 rows, we promote the headers, and we filter the rows that are having customer ID, so these ones. Being a CSV file, these customer ID headers were all over the place. Let me see if I can open it. This is the initial CSV file. So customer ID, this is how the data was exported from different system, and we have to deal with it. But we need to add an additional column here to these customers, because for each of the customers, the category was here underneath this header. So how do we do it? We have 2 ways to do it. Using the user interface, just referencing this initial step. So right click, reference, and doing it normally, just duplicating the customer ID column, changing the type. And this time, instead of removing the error, right click and replace the error with nulls. So because we already have the nulls on this column, we add an additional column saying that if customer ID copied, this one equals null, then just give me the customer ID, this one, otherwise give me a null. And then fill down, filtering the nulls here, all the nulls on this column, removing the additional help and changing the type. It's pretty easy to do, but still there are some steps that needs to be done, and at least I've showed you how we can replace the error this time, not only remove them. But there is another way, which is much better. Let's reference this one, doing as a Formula 2. I'll try to remember it. I think I know it, but Formula 2. So having this source query as the initial step here, I think we should add a column, which we can call it anyway. We can add a custom column. We can leave it as a custom for now. And do a number dot from customer ID. Number dot from customer ID. Of course, for the rows where we had numbers, this function worked. For the other ones where we had the category, we got an error. How do we deal with this? I think we should use the try, exactly like I showed you earlier. Let's try a try, if I may say like this. So let's do this one. I don't think I can increase this one. Yeah. Try. And otherwise, just put a null. So if this one is not a number and we get an error, just put a null. If it is a number, just give me that number. But what if we could use everything in an if statement and check for nulls? So we can wrap everything up in a if statement. Let's try it like this. If this one is null, wrap it in a parenthesis. Then I need the customer ID column. So I need the category from the customer ID column. Else, I need it null. And see what we got here. It's exactly what we needed. So this time, just go and put it in the same step category, fill down, remove the blanks, and we got everything. If we are checking the user interface number of steps and this one, I think it's easier to do it like this, and from time to time, it's easier to use the nulls with the try otherwise function. I hope that I did exactly what I had here. Yeah. Filter the rows, everything it's okay.
Can you please share the editor again? Query editor. Someone is asking. Fernando Calero is asking.
Yes.
Show that again.
Suppose
not sure which one of the query. Okay.
I think it's this one. Is this one, Fernando? I wanted to move the mouse and
yes.
cannot do it.
He says yes, thanks.
It will be recorded, and I will provide anyway the files to everybody who wants to play with them.
So for anyone who is new to these meetup group sessions, a couple of days after the meeting, I'll be sending out an email, and on that email, I will include a link to the resources and the video recording.
Okay, so anybody play with this or worked with the data like this before?
I have learned a couple of things already, so keep going.
Okay, I'm glad you did. Let's go to the next demo. We have this is more or less for the beginners. We have a simple table here, which is called transactions. We just bring it to Power Query with right-click, get data from table range or data from table range, and we get this table. This one. Right off the bat, we see that there are errors. Until now, most of the cell level errors were due to change type, but this one, even at the beginning of the query, on the very first step, we already have errors. And this is why this is happening, because we have cell values which are invalid for Power Query. So we might have this kind of errors also. So these are the normal errors that happen in Excel. Value errors, diff by zero, reference errors, and name errors, and NAs. We don't have to be scared of them, and just treat them as the business says we have to do. In this query, I also have a change type, which is adding an error. If you're seeing here, this cell is 9A. When I'm changing the type, we get an actual, or what I've shown you already, cell level error. But if we reference it and go to this one, the first query, so let me show you. Most of you know how the query dependency looks, but there are some very good relationship to be seen here for the newcomers. What I did, I just connected to this the table in the current workbook. I got the query of the transactions, and then I referenced it several times with different queries, and I just named them so I can know on which order I should present them to you. And the rehearsal yesterday, it took me some time to do everything from scratch, and I prefer to do it like this. So on this one, I just want to add an additional column saying that I want to put a column that for product for each of the rows here. As I'm loading it to Excel, I want to have something written like for product, that product, the unit price is this product. So it's a kind of concatenate from Excel with some additional text inside. What do we get? We get operation errors. These are the type of errors that are happening because we cannot do operations with columns which are having different types. And I can show you another one with the next error here, when I've tried in this additional column to do a multiplication on that column, which is text, by 10. I'm getting the same type of operation error. And in the message, we get the details that we cannot apply multiply operator to types text and number. This time is one of the rare times when the errors are actually helping, but it's something that I wanted to show to everybody that these are not allowed and we will get errors. But how do we treat the errors? Well, first thing I showed you before, we can actually remove the error. So we are adding an additional column, doing just a simple multiplication between price and quantity for all the cells that had an error before, whether they were source error or this one, which was becoming an error after the change type, the result, so error times something, it's error. Depending on the request from the business, we can do whatever they are saying. This time, even if this one seems to be sales and it's counterintuitive to remove errors from a sales table, the business said, whatever it's with error, just remove the errors. And this remove errors is easily done just by right-clicking the table, the column, and remove the error. Where is it? This here. So this is one option. Just remove the errors and keep everything that it's without errors. There's another option to replace the error. So here, right from the bat, the business said for any error that you get there, whether it's a value error or an NA error, I know my stuff here, so just replace them with 0. And this is what we are doing. We just right click, replace errors, and we can replace it with all the errors with whatever they are saying. And then move further. Of course, that 0 times anything will be 0. In the end, we are keeping only the columns that we need, filtering the zeros out because they are useless, and changing the type, and this is it. But there is another option. The fourth query here, to treat the errors programmatically. Again, we try otherwise. And here, we just write this. It's a kind of if error in Excel. So the multiplication between price and quantity, what we saw in the first one, returns an error. Just do the unit price. We can pass as otherwise either a function or whatever is valid in the actual context. So we are replicating the if error function here in our query with try otherwise. So for the normal rows where the price and the quantity, so this multiplication returns a normal value, the actual value return, it will be that one. But for the ones that are having an error, so if this expression evaluates to an error, we want to do a different operation, multiplying the unit price here times the quantity. Hence, the amount column here, it's more or less the right one if the business says so. And from here, we can just keep like the other ones, remove the other columns, detect data type. Told you, I've learned from Ken, and this is something that sticks with me now. I do it without even thinking, just at the end, detecting the data types. Are you with me? Does that make sense? Because I'm having only one more demo, and I'd like to get some questions if there are any until now. Probably not. Okay, let's move further.
Actually, Kristen, there was one that was asked about in your previous example when you had the category, and what if the category and the item number were both numerical in nature?
Well, one should find another logic for that one. We have to detect the patterns there and use them. Here, it was easy to do it like this. Of course, if the category was a number, it wouldn't work like this because it would have been returned as a number, that one, and we couldn't have used the replace error or try otherwise on that error. Probably, if we would see that specific file, we should try to find a different logic for it. For this one, this was the right approach, at least from my point of view, to solve the problem. Okay, let's move to the last one. And I think last file. Yeah, this one. delete some sheets. I'm having a sheet here with a file name so that whenever I'm moving the files, I'm using it as a file parameter in the raw data connection. And this is a file with a very simple data model. Looks really simple with a fact table, sales fact table, calendar, products, and customers. All the data in these 4 tables are coming from a separate Excel file, which is this one, also simplified. And I'll show you how I've built it and how I found several errors and how we can treat them and help the end users with them. So let me open the Power Query editor and delete these ones. And show you what I did here. First thing, when I'm building something like this, I told you about the 3 layers, 3-step layers methodology that I've learned from Ken, but I'm using it backwards, Ken. I know you like to have a data model on top and raw data at the bottom. For me, it works better like this, so I'm using it differently. The idea is like this. Let's go to the query dependency and show you what I mean by the 3-layer methodology. We have, for each of the files or each of the data sources, we are making a single connection to the data source in a single query, reference that connection to some staging queries that can be referenced even more afterwards, like these ones. And then reference again the staging queries and build the tables that are loaded in the data model. There are several benefits using this methodology, and ever since I learned about it, I'm working almost exclusively like this. And one of the reasons, actually 2 of the reasons that I love it so much is that you get rid of the formula firewall errors because you're actually referencing some internal tables if you want to combine files. And I told you I'll provide a link with an article that Ken wrote many years ago. And this way, another great benefit is that having these staging queries on this level, which are loaded only as a connection only, so both the first level, so these 2 first levels, raw data level, and the staging level here. These 2 levels are loaded only as connections only, or disable load in Power BI. And this is really helpful in terms of flexibility afterwards. One might have the need to reference a certain individual query here just to, I don't know, do some checks or spin up a different dimension or do whatever, count things or things like this. Having it like this provides the maximum flexibility. And I'll show you another trick just before going into this one, a trick that I've learned. Actually, I don't remember from where, but I'll show you. Let's do it from 0 with a new query from file from Excel. And go to desktop, Control simplified. So I'm connecting to an Excel file. If it's working. And normally here we have in this Excel file, we have several tables defined as tables and several sheets, right? The first time when I've learned Power Query, I was so happy that I can select multiple items here and just select whatever table I want to load, and this is it. Well, yes, we can do this, but it's not very useful in our case because we can do something even better. We can right-click here on the folder, go to Transform Data, and build a query that it's seeing the entire Excel file with all the sheets, tables, and defined names inside. This is the raw data connection that I've built here, and this is how I like to work with, because in an Excel file like this one, having tables, it's very simple just to filter for tables and don't care about anything else, and then use it from here. So let's go with what I did already and show you what I want to show you. So the source here, it's almost the same. I'm using it. I'm using this additional query with the file path because I wanted to have it dynamic, and this is how I'll send you the file. I'm filtering only to get the tables and removing all the other columns. From here, I just right-click, reference it, and build this staging table, where, of course, the first step in a referenced query, it's the end result of the previous query. I just went to the source, the calendar, changing types, extract. Let's say we need to do some modifications, and I extracted the text of the delimiter from this column, so I don't need the CY. I just extracted the. Let me show you. After space, here it's a space. And I also inserted the day name using the date column. This query was more or less complete. Right click, reference it, and build this query, the calendar, which is actually the one loading in the data model. And this is what we should do for every table here. So let's go with this one on the customer tables. Again, just right click the raw data, reference it. This is the initial step. Navigate to the staging customers, change type, but I already see some errors here. Well, we need to have some additional transformations. Let's say we need to split the name. We are changing type for these to split the columns. We are renaming them to first name and last name. Remove the columns. We don't need all the columns here. And we change type again, including the birth date, because if you see here, the birth date was not changed inside the change type because it had the errors. So we are just referencing it, changing the type like this. Well, the next step, like I did with the calendar, is just right click, reference, and build a new query, which is called customers, which is having, again, the first step, the result of the other one. Here, I was selecting all the columns that I wanted to have in the data model, just to future-proof that there won't be any additional columns in the future. I'm just changing the type, as Ken taught me. And to make sure I won't have problems in the data model, I did an additional step here. I right-click this little table on the left, just normal click, and remove errors. Where is it? This one. So I did this additional step. And now I know for sure that when I load this data in the data model, I won't have any error here. But what do we do with the errors here? Because we saw that there are errors on this birth date. Well, we can reference it again and build a, I don't know, a staging customers errors, a new query. As far as I see, all the errors are on this column. So right click, and instead of removing the errors, we keep the errors this time. So select the column, home, keep rows, keep errors. At the beginning, when I saw this button, at the beginning when I first started with Power Query, I couldn't imagine why would you keep the errors, but now I understand. What do we do with those errors? So we leverage again the try, what we've learned earlier. So we build another custom column with try, and this column birth date, because we know the error is here, and we'll get a record exactly like before, where the HasError is true and the record is actually holding the message details and the error reason. We have to expand this, but I don't need this HasError field because we know that all of them are having errors. Uncheck the use original column as prefix, and we expand it to the actual error record. From here, we just expand it again, but this time I want to have this original column name as prefix. Right click again, and now we have all the details for every error, which is pretty cool. But if we would like to load this one, let's try to load it. Close and load to. Let's say we want to load it in the as a table, yeah, on a new worksheet. We would still have 4 errors here, and this is because this is the reason for this is because we haven't deleted the column with the actual errors that were causing this. So it's very simple, just delete that column. And now we could provide this table to the end user and saying, you know, in this table, you had some errors and these are the details and this is the data format error. So you could go back to it and see whether you can fix it. So probably here it's a minus missing, here it's a column instead of a minus, and here probably I should do it bigger so we see it better. And on this one, on this record, we had an invalid cell value with the div by 0. So we could do this and provide this table to the end users so they can leverage it and check the errors, so the data sources and work there and see whether they are real errors or not. But what if we have errors different kind of errors or on different tables. Let's say we just reference again the raw data connection to build the staging products. Here, the first step again is the raw data connection. We navigate to the products, and right off the bat, we just change the type for all the columns here. Everything seems fine. Let's say the data was correct there and we don't have to do additional transformations. So right click, reference, and build the products table. Well, here, again, we are following the same steps. We are selecting all the columns and remove other columns so we can hard code the name of the columns that we actually need. We're changing the type at the end, towards the end. Let's delete this step for now. And we are trying to load this in the data model. So close and load. It doesn't load. Why? Because we had some problems in the product tables. Column product key as a table contains. Actually, this is a different kind of problem. I was not expecting to this one, but this is happening because I already have the connections in the data model. This table didn't even load for now. But what I wanted to show you here and what you would expect when you don't have the tables already connected in the data model, this products table that we just did, even if it looked right, it had errors. And why didn't we catch them? Well, this is because Power Query is only showing a preview of the data of the first 1000 rows here. So if you are checking this portion of the screen here, and we have the column profiling set it up. So if we go here in the View tab and check the column profile, we see that the entire profiling, let's put it here because it's more visible, the entire profiling and the quality check is done on 1000 rows, and everything seems right for everything. But there is an option here, even if it's not very visible, this is a clickable button. So let me make it bigger. So if I click on it and I check the column profiling based on entire data set, you see that the numbers are changing. So we don't have 1000 rows, we have the entire data set here. And this time we see some problems here on the product key, here on the size, there are some errors. Well, how do we treat them? Again, like before, we just make sure that no errors are coming to the data model. So we click the table here and remove the errors from the entire table. Now everything should be fine, and when we are loading the table in the data model, we shouldn't have an error anymore. But probably the connections, oh no, it's okay. Yeah, but this is removing the errors means that we've actually removed rows there. How many? How do we know? How do we treat them? Well, let's see how we can do it. Let's go to the staging products. What I've told you at the beginning, we can further reference it and use it. Right click, not duplicate. Reference it. Product, reference it. And what do we do? First thing, we already know there is an error. Just click here and we keep the errors. And this time, if you see, the errors are not only on one column. it's on multiple columns, and it might be on any table on multiple columns. So what do we do? Well, we should go back one step before keeping the errors and add an index from one, so that we know later on, maybe we have a table which doesn't have a product key like this one, and it's a fact table where these product keys are not unique. So just make sure we have a unique identifier. We are adding an index and then keep the errors. Normally in modern Excel or Office 365 Excel, this is not a problem now. Just to right click, unpivot other columns. And from here, it's very easy to, we have everything unpivoted for each of the indexes. We have all the columns. So these are the column names and these are the values. From here, just keep the errors. Keep the errors from here. And treat them exactly like we treated them before. So adding a column, try. I will go faster a bit this time. Getting the record. I don't care about that one. And expand everything. And we have all the details for all the columns here. But this time, when we want to load it, we have the same problem. We have to delete the actual errors from the file so we can provide this table, this audit table to the end users. So of course we can append it. Let's put it, rename it exactly like the other one. We could append it with this one and just provide a single table, audit table to the end users. But this would mean that we should do all these steps for everything. And I told you at the beginning, I'm kind of lazy and I don't want to do it. So what do? Well, we can fix it. We can reuse the entire code we've wrote here. We can reuse it with a custom function. So just right click, duplicate. And this one, we should rename it to and do it as a custom function. We go to View, Advanced Editor. So a function always has a parameter. So just let's define a parameter and the starting equal and greater than. As a parameter, we can put any, I don't know, table. As table. So we have to define it, but let's put it differently. Let's put a different name. Input table. As table. And if we would leave it like this, it wouldn't do anything because the parameter is not used anywhere. So yes, it is a function, but even if we would choose a different table, this function wouldn't do anything because the actual parameter here is not used anywhere. So we should just copy this one and put it as a input on the source. Edit index on the source. Everything seems right. That's it. Pretty easy. Let's rename the function. I don't know. Let's say fn get errors on pivot. And let's try it. We did the same, or let's try it for those two tables that we already saw that we have errors. So let's invoke this function on this staging customers. Staging customers, invoke it. We get the exact same result. And this time we have it standardized. What I mean by standardize, I'll show you now. Let's invoke it again. Let's rename it first. So, source customer. And let's invoke it again for staging products. Everything works. Errors, products. Now, even if we get the same, the next table, the sales table, with by referencing the raw data connection here and starting again from the beginning with navigation, filtering. I just put a filter here because in the pivot table I saw that I have sales for a customer which is not in the customer list. So this is a separate step. Keep the columns that we need and change type, and then reference this one to build a sales table. We can, I know that there are errors, but let's check it with this function. Let's invoke the function with staging sales. And yes, indeed, we have errors there on several columns, on product key, on customer key, on order date. The good thing about using a function, besides saving a lot of clicks and things, actually saving a lot of work, is that the result, the results are consistent. And now, having those three results and having an index for each of the tables allows us just to right click, reference one of them. So I got the customers, and then append the other queries. Errors prod and errors sales. And having a single audit table. That we can provide to our end users and go from there. They can check all the data sources and do whatever they need to do with the data source. So let's load it as a table. I hope my Excel won't crash, because this is the last step, actually. Am I still on?
You are still on.
But I think Excel crashed, just crashed. Well, it's good that I finished the. Oh,
There you go.
it's
You jinxed
restarting.
it.
Which one is this one? The audit one. Ah, okay, it's working. Let's go back to it. And in Power Query Editor. But nothing is saved. And the Control-Shift+ is not working anymore. Ah, it does. But in the file that I've prepared, I already have the appended query, so everything is working, and the get error formula. But there is another thing that I wanted to show you. it's a different way of getting the errors. For older Power Query versions, whenever you are doing unpivoting, at the first error, the entire operation stops. So you cannot unpivot a table which has an error. So whatever I did for the tables where we had errors in multiple columns cannot be done in old version in 2010 and 2013. And what I did, I'll show you here with the staging customers. I changed the types. I added an index. I kept the errors. Is this the one?
Yeah.
I think this is the one. No, not the customers. This is the one. The customers is the one with a single column. This is the one with the products where we had errors in several columns. So change type, added index, keeping the errors. So we had errors on product key and size. And we are adding a specific column here with a very complicated formula, an underscore. The underscore, it's a shortcut referring to the current row. So we're actually building a column, and in that column, in each of the cells, we are holding the entire row, the values from the entire rows, and I'll show you how this looks like. So we are actually building a record on that one, where we have all the details in that record. So inside this one, well, we remove the other columns just to keep the index and this one. And we are adding another step here, another column. And we're adding a column to this table with record.table from the actual that record. So we are transforming the record into a table. And the result, so from a record, everything gets to a table, even if it's not much of a difference when we see it here, but in terms of Power Query, record and the table are totally separate things. And then we are removing the records itself and keeping only the index. We are expanding everything. And this is the actual unpivot. This is how unpivot is done in older versions of Power Query, where unpivoting stops at the first error. From here are the exact same steps. So it's nothing much, and in the end we can transform this one in a function. Besides this audit table that we can provide to the end users to help them debug or see what's happening in the data sources, there are two additional functions that we can use in Power Query. And these functions are related to this profiling data. So when you see here, when we click and we have the column profile set it up, we have some details, the count of numbers, how many errors, how many are empty, distinct, unique, and so on. And there are two functions in Power Query that can give us this information at the table level. So I'm building a new query, just a simple let in with the source table.profile on sales, and I'll show you how simple it's done. We just reference it, and here on the first step, yeah, there is another trick that I've learned from Matt Ellington. Actually, when you need to write a function before a step name, having a parenthesis first will not break the IntelliSense. So table, of course, it's not working at all here, but in Power BI, usually it works. So table.profile, didn't help much this time. And this is a function who can, which can give us some additional things that can be provided to the end users in order to check the quality of the data. Besides table.profile, there is another one, table.schema, which is also providing some additional information for the columns, what are the types of the data inside, whether it is nullable or not, and some additional data. Anyway, in terms of cleaning up your data, besides the audit table, these two functions seemed really useful for me and worthwhile mentioning here. So that makes sense. Everything is more or less clear.
Wonderful.
Because my demo is done, and I should come back to the slide for one more minute. Let me see if I can switch to the other screen. Something's wrong again. This one. Yeah. As some ending words, I want to give you my best practice, not the best practice. It's my best practice learned from the community and experience and a lot of headbanging through the years. Plan for errors. Don't wait for them to happen. Just make sure that you are prepared and your queries will load and you will not break anything. Avoid certain transformations until absolutely you have to do them, like moving or reordering columns, removing, renaming columns, sorting unnecessary or detecting data types. For step level errors, start debugging from the end. So if you have a chain of queries, start debugging from the one where you got the error and move backwards through the steps first and then through the other queries. Use the dependency view. Even if the graphical interface is not great, because we saw Dataflows in Power BI and that one is great, it's useful. So use the dependency view. Whenever you can, use parameters for data sources. As I said, and I'll say it to anybody and every time, use the 3-layer Puls methodology to avoid formula firewall and to provide additional flexibility. Don't remove columns, and this is something that I haven't shown, but it's really easy to figure it out. When you are selecting a column, or no, when you are deleting a column, just right click and delete a column. There is a function which says table.delete column, and it hard codes the deleted column. If you want to keep the other columns that won't be deleted, as a best practice, it's safer to select the columns that you want to keep, right click and remove other columns. So selecting the columns you want to keep. This is something that I've learned in the hard way, to be honest. It happened several times, and I thought it would be good to mention it here. For the value error or the cell level errors, when appropriate, leverage the errors. You saw using try otherwise, we can leverage it in multiple ways depending on the logic that it's needed. Treat the errors programmatically with exactly what I said with try otherwise. One piece of advice that I would give to anyone which is passing the beginner side is to disable the auto detect data types. Most of the times, and I'm sure you saw it already, Power Query adds this additional step by default on a lot of steps, a lot of functions, and they are not changing data types is not really necessary everywhere where Power Query puts it. Make sure you're putting it on purpose, knowing what you are doing as latest as possible just before loading the data. So plan for errors, build audit tables for your users, and in general, make sure that every time you are dealing with Power Query solutions, you plan for the case where the data is not loading due to step level errors, whenever possible, of course. This is the slide that I told you with additional resources. The link that I was telling you about is this one from Ken, and I have it as a bookmark, Ken. And there are some, these are the official Microsoft documentation links. And I've put here some additional links with Power Query masters all over the world.
There's one error there.
Which one?
The solventexcel.ca, it's the, you
No,
need to debug that.
No. But as you can see, they are just in alphabetical order, and the YouTube is the last one. This is the link that I told you about at the beginning on the privacy settings in Power Query. Thank you, everyone. Feel free to contact me to connect on LinkedIn, follow me on Twitter, or subscribe to the Romanian Power BI user group channel, which is SSBI Central. Hit me with questions or feedback or.
Thank you, Cristian. It was a wonderful presentation. I learned a lot. A lot of detail, very well thought and prepared. And so thank you. Thank you. This will be one of those sessions to bookmark and review multiple times because there's a lot to extract from it. Are there any questions, any comments that anyone wants to make before we close our session?
I hope everyone found at least one thing useful inside of it, and we can help spread the word and plan for errors and do the work better.
Yeah. Belinda, thank you for helping with the questions as well in the chat and
yes, it was really helpful.
Yeah.
So
I guess I can stop the recording now. If there are no questions or comments, stop recording.